Mike Wall. Welcome back to another episode of the Agent Revolution podcast presented by Mike Wall Live, the place where we deconstruct the biggest challenges facing today's real estate agents so that they can build a sustainable, profitable, but most of all, fulfilling real estate business. Today, I'm joined by real estate investor and best-selling author, Chris Prefontaine, and we're going to discuss some of the practical strategies to help you get started investing in real estate. If you're looking to build wealth in real estate, you got to start investing. But before we do that, always remember, you can go to MikeWallLive.com. We've got 8 hours worth of absolutely free real estate business training for you right now. On to the show. Chris, you ready to rock and roll, my man?
I am ready, Mr. Mike.
Let's do this. But before we get into today's topic, I always start with a little bit of background or bio on my guests. So Chris, bring us up to speed, man. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'll give you the fast forward just because it's 30 years. It makes me feel old, but it is what it is. So I've touched every niche you could probably touch. I actually was a broker owner as well as an agent, did 100 homes a year. I ended up selling my company in 2000 to Coldwell Banker.
Okay.
From that point on is when I started more of my own investments and coaching. And unfortunately, that led up to the 2008 crash. So that was rather ugly for me. You couldn't have told me that was good then, but in hindsight, it was phenomenal. It caused us to re-engineer everything we do, which is what we've been doing, myself, my son-in-law, my son, since about 2012, because that crash took me 4 years to dig out of.
Yeah.
From 12 on, we've been buying and selling on terms. That means no banks. That means never signing on a loan. That means not using your own money. And that's how we exist today. We do our own deals, and we help people around the country do the same.
Yeah, awesome, man. And I definitely want to dig into some of that stuff, especially buying deals on terms, which I know that, you guys do a lot of that stuff. I think exclusively now, right? You're doing all your deals on terms then?
Yeah, every single one of them. There's always an exception, right? But just 99% of our deals are done on terms now, even my office building.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to dig into that, man. So, obviously today's topic is how can real estate agents start investing in real estate? And I wrote in my marketing remarks, I actually, before, when I got into real estate, I didn't even own a home, right? And I was encouraging people to buy homes, and yet I was a renter. And I oftentimes felt like a phony, right? It's kind of the same thing when you're working with if you're a real estate agent and you're working with investors, you're encouraging people to invest in real estate, but you don't own any rental property. Yeah. Right. And so you and I were talking before the show. Oftentimes, real estate agents are sitting right in front of deals, and they're chasing the commission. And they've got they're chasing a $2,500 commission when they've got a $25,000 wholesale fee right in front of them. And so I really want to speak to that today. Tell me a little bit about let's talk to the layman real estate agent, right? And this may be a really successful real estate agent, but they're the layman investor, right? So how can a real estate agent start investing in real estate?
Yeah, think of it this way. And when I said we did 100 homes a year, that wasn't an ego statement. I said that to cue this up. I didn't know how to do this. And so when I started structuring this, I thought to myself, what the heck? I could have done so many more deals and bigger deals. So think of this as an agent. I don't care if you're doing 2 or 100 a year.
Yeah.
Every deal that you can't do, whether it's an expired that you just couldn't get done, or a FSBO that won't deal with you, or a homeowner who has no money left so they can't afford a commission. Those are all deals we pass up on, right? I mean, I did. They just exist. Every one of those deals, almost every one of them, you can buy on terms. And the only one that you can't probably is the person that has zero equity and they're a year behind. I get those calls. But every other person you can help as long as you have the right term. So that's who you deal with.
Yeah.
As far as what you would do, we buy them on lease purchase or owner financing, or subject to existing financing. 3 ways we buy.
Yeah.
None of those include you signing on a loan ever. We carry like 50 or 60 properties at a time, and I'm not on one single solitary loan. That makes for a nice restful sleep at night versus signing on loans.
Yeah. So dig in a little bit deeper on that. Those different. You said lease purchase, right? Tell us what a lease purchase is.
Sure. Let's so many scenarios, Mike, but let's do this. Let's say you own a home, you're the seller. Your house is worth, we agree, about $300. You couldn't sell it. Let's say it's an expired listing, big source for us. You owe $250. Let's just use a number. Let's give you some equity.
Okay.
I say to you, okay, Mike, you couldn't sell. You're moving out of state. You got to get this done. I will structure a lease purchase whereby we take over your mortgage payments. We make them direct to your bank, so I control it. We will, at the end of the lease purchase period, let's use 3 years for this chat. We will pay you your 50 grand equity that you couldn't get in the market. I'll give you that 50, and I will pay off the underlying loan. The loan's now 250, but 3 years in a row to be lower. So that's where I benefit. So the homeowner says, okay, great. Wipe their hands clean, go off and do their thing. I install a buyer who needs time. And right now with COVID, it's even more rampant, but it was always a big database of people that can't qualify today. And so we put a buyer in there that needs time. And then during that process, they're just leasing from us, but they have a definitive buyout date. This is not a renter kind of want to be owner. There's a big difference in how we teach this. It is a buyer that is truly a buyer that got snagged with some credit or had a divorce or needs a down payment or needs more reserves because of COVID, right? The banks are requiring more.
Yeah.
Once we put them in, then we take over the mortgage payment. So there's no risk to take something on before you get your buyer. And then when you do that, this is the kicker for realtors. You create 3 paydays. 3.
Yeah.
You have payday 1 is their non-refundable down payment. Remember, they're buyers, so they have that.
Yeah.
Second is your spread between the underlying 250 mortgage I'm paying for you. Let's say it's $1,200. I'm going to collect 15, 16, 1700 from the tenant buyer, we call them, buyers that need time. And then the back end's really cool, the payday 3. 2 years, 3 years, sometimes 5, 7 years out. You know you have all that principal pay down plus the markup that you did in that $300,000 house. I might go to 320. So I got 20 grand there, and I got all the principal pay down plus those paydays I already mentioned. We average around 75 grand on these deals, all 3 paydays. So I was saying to you before the show, we had a deal recently a realtor gave us, and we outlined it on a webinar we did recently because we were doing it to this big group of realtors. We said, look, guys, we got this deal. It was guy was moving out of state. Realtor couldn't sell it. He called us and said, to help my client, we did it. The profit for us was 86 grand, 3 paydays. His commission wouldn't have been close to that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a long answer to your good question. I hope that helped.
No, that's great. And are you structuring, so your lease purchases, is that, would you say that represents the largest percentage of your transactions?
Good question. It did when I started doing terms, Mike, because I came out of the 2008 crash with my credit was trashed. I had no cash reserve, like everything got sucked up.
Yeah.
So the lease purchase is easy because I'm not taking title. My agreements say $10 deposit. I mean, how easy can you get? So that's simple. Yeah. As we got more savvy with this, we're converting a lot of the lease purchase to subject to. So when we do own them, so there's some costs there because usually if you're doing a subject to deal, the owners, they can't even pay their transfer tax. So there's some money that has to come out of, but like tiny, $500 to $1,500. But yes, at first it was. Now it's kind of flipped to more owner financing and sub twos, which frankly it worked perfect with COVID hitting us. We like tripled our volume in those types of deals.
Yeah, and you're getting them to agree to this because you're giving them advance on the equity.
No, not in advance. But what we are doing is we are locking in the equity that they couldn't get on the open market. Or because a lot of realtors will say, well, who would say yes to terms? Everyone that wouldn't sell conventionally will say yes to terms. And no, we don't give it to them up front. We give it to them on the back end because we're not putting any cash up.
Okay.
So they'll get that when my tenant buyer cashes out. That allows them to get their pay off of their mortgage, their 50 grand in that example, and I get the rest.
Okay. And what does that conversation look like with the seller when you're pitching that?
Yeah, depending on their scenario, all I'm listening to, and then I'll go direct to that question. I'm listening to like, what the heck are they going through now? Do they have to go out of state? Did they get a divorce and they're arguing back and forth? What is it? Did you run out of equity and you can't pay a realtor? So once I hear that, I just try to solve for that equation. Really, it's all I'm doing. Because people will say, how do you convince them? I definitely don't. I just try to solve a problem or get them to a goal that they couldn't otherwise get to. So if you're my seller and you couldn't sell, in the scenario I used, you had to leave, I would just say, hey, Mike, we can structure a lease purchase, but I have one question for you. If you were to get your price, are you open to lease purchase or owner financing, or did you need your cash right away? It's the only opening question on the phone. Do you need that money now to go buy a house? And if they do, I can't help them.
Yeah.
But if they don't, and they can go rent somewhere, or they already have a house and they can afford that other house, I'm the best fit for them. There's no question. Yeah.
And you actually have an interesting perspective because you have been a real estate agent before. So talk to me about some of the things real estate agents need to start listening for during their appointments to know whether this is an actual listing or an actual opportunity to make some big money through maybe a lease purchase or a wholesale or whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. So here's the way I say it to realtors. I say, look, go in there once you learn how to do terms. Go in there with the mindset of, to your seller, you're probably the only one in the area, or maybe one of two in your area who can do this, and say, look, I want to hear your whole scenario. And after hearing your scenario, I'll let you know if it's best that I buy it as an investor or that you list with me as a realtor, I'll let you know. So you're morally and ethically doing the best for the client. They're going to feel that because you're going to say, here are my options. I make more here. You get out of it here and you get your cash, but you're going to get less money. Let's just look at what's best for you. Yeah. That's a cool presentation because you'll be the only one, I promise you. That's why they're referring up to us in our area. You'll be the only one or two that knows how to do this. And there's no realtor that can walk into that house and go, I got you no matter what, unless you're like a year behind with no equity.
And I've oftentimes found that it's just a matter of thinking differently, right? It's like we talked about before. Real estate agents don't even think about it as an option to buy the property, right? Their train of thought is, I'm just going here to interview for a listing to get a commission, right? And I'm asking you now, before you go into that home, or actually while you're doing the pre-qual before you go out for the appointment, is go through a series of questions to see if this might be an opportunity, for an investment, right? And if you just change that one thing, if the only thing you take from this show is just change your train of thought when you're talking to a seller in the pre-qual interview, then that's where you're going to start to hear those phrases, those terms where it's going to trigger something in your head where you go, oh yeah, this is what they were talking about on the show. Let me ask this question now because this might be an opportunity for an investment, right?
Yeah, I can think of when you were saying that, so many scenarios, like you call up a FSBO or an expired and immediately they react as an agent, right? They react to you as an agent.
Yeah.
And so the answer to, are you an agent? It's real simple. I'm a licensed agent. I also can buy your house. Let's look at all options. I'm telling you, you can feel the guard come down on the phone when you say that.
Yeah. It's so true, man. That's a good point. And that's something I promise you that other agents are not saying. So if you want to be able to break the ice or get past that defensiveness, hey, I've got a couple. I am a real estate agent, right? But I could also make you a cash offer on the home, or we could work something out to where I buy the property from you, right? And so, when you start to think this way, your world starts to really open up, right? Opportunities seem to, I don't want to say fall in your lap, but you just become more enlightened to different opportunities, and you can be a little bit more flexible. And when you can provide more options for the seller, you're going to automatically put yourself in a position that's far above any other agent that's going to come in and sit and try to get a commission, correct?
Yeah, think of this. People like people that are like them, right? So if they had the house that couldn't sell, they got friends with houses that couldn't sell. Like, it's just how the world goes. Yeah. So you help them, you blow their mind with that because they all say, I never heard of this. And to that I say, no, it's been around since like late 1800s, but people just don't know how to do it. Literally it has. So you do that, they start flapping their lips because you did a deal. You can do this quickly for them. Like they can get relief if that's what they're looking for. But I should say, Mike, too, we're talking like everybody needs like a fix right away. We also deal with, when we talk about owner financing, I'm dealing with some sellers that have a third of our deals that have no debt on their property. Like they just want the best price, and guess what? They can wait. Those are great deals. My office building, I'm not there, I'm at my house today, but my office building was bought on a 20-year owner financing deal. Normally I'd have to put up 30%, whatever it would be, have high credit. My credit's fine now, but I didn't have to do all that. I didn't have to go through underwriting. I just did a deal with him directly. He didn't want to deal with an agent.
Yeah.
So there's just so much opportunity. It's crazy.
Yeah. How many deals are no money down, Chris?
We do 25 or 30 of these a month around the country with students. Of that, of ours, we do like 2 to 5 of those. The rest are with students because we do deals with students. Like we have realtors in our program who I'm calling the seller with them. They're hearing me do it, and that's how we learn, like on the fly. Because
I think the misconception oftentimes when you're doing a lease purchase is you've got to put down this big sum of money, right? And that's not always true, is it?
It's never true. We don't do it. I won't do it. No. I will consider a small down payment to help someone move or something they're in strain. Yeah. If I get a big equity boost because of it, like, hey, I'll give you $1,800 to move, but I need this much on the back end. Yeah. Or I ain't doing it. Like, there's got to be some reason for me to put that up. But no, by and large, no. A lease purchase, I will not because I don't take title.
Yeah, yeah. And what is like? Not that there's any like. Every deal is different, right? We know that. Right. And when you're structuring a deal for a lease purchase, what does that look like?
As far as the technical.
Just give me a common deal for you. Maybe it's a 3-year balloon and you no money down. What is that? Just give me a common deal for you.
Okay, so let's use the exact same numbers to keep it simple for these guys, so kind of keep the train of thought going.
Yeah.
On lease purchase. So our agreement on that scenario I gave, where we said your home was worth about 3, you didn't get in the market, and you owe 250. Our agreement basically says nothing about sales price. I don't focus on that.
Yeah.
With the owner, I say, what did you think you were going to get? And you say to me, well, 50, but I didn't get it. All right, great. Listen, Mike, our agreement's going to say, literally in section 13 of my agreement, it says purchase price equals $50,000 cash at financing plus the payoff of existing liens mentioned in, and it references the other section of the contract. That's it. And it's a $10 deposit. Now, there are safety nets in there for us as investors. Okay. We can literally assign the house back if we want to the owner. That's put in there for a reason. If the owner gets a little bit stringent on their dates and they won't give you an extension when you need it, et cetera, we say, well, Mike, do you really want the house back? I need like 3 more months to get this done. And they're, no, I don't want it back. So we've got all kinds of safeguards built in because we've done so many of these, like several hundred.
Yeah, that's great, man. I know the most common question I get, because we invest in real estate too, and I know the market's changed a lot over the last 5 years. It was good for us. We started out just going to sheriff sales. Literally, we had no overhead, right? No one was there, and it was great, man, because we'd come out with a few deals a month, and we had no marketing budget. We weren't sending mailers out or anything, so it was just, there was a lot of profit. And, slowly that changed, right? Everybody started becoming an investor. Everybody showed up at the sheriff sales. And literally, people were paying almost retail at the sheriff sales. And obviously we couldn't do that any longer. So then we kind of went off market. We were focused on mailers. We were focused on billboards and did some stuff. And the market's tightened up a lot, man. And deals are tougher to find these days. And I know, people are asking, well, how are you finding these deals, right? And you mentioned the expireds and for sell-by owners being a good source for you. Where are some other places people are finding deals?
We do those two, and we do for rent by owner. You get some frustrated landlords in there for sure. Then if within, say, an hour radius of one of our areas with the students, if they're not getting enough leads to match their goals, everybody's different, right? If they're aggressive, then we'll start to go to niched lists. I like, for example, free and clear. I like out of state. Sometimes you can do both, and there's enough data still. Yeah. Free and clear, about a third of the properties in the United States are free and clear. That's a big pond to fish in with a whole bunch of savvy people that were able to pay their house off at some point in their life, right? Yeah. So those are fun deals. Now, here's the punchline there. These are the deals that are 6 figures. Here's why. The same exact scenario with the 3 paydays happens on an owner financing deal that's free and clear. The difference is our monthly payments to the owner is principal only. Principal only. So you can picture how that's a nice recession hedge. It's a market hedge, and it hammers your principal down. That's a pretty cool metric to think about. So any deal, I'll give you some exact numbers. Any deal of $200,000 purchase or higher, where you structure payment to the owner of at least $900 or higher, and where you have at least a 4-year term, 6 figures or more, all 3 paydays, every time. That's mind-boggling for some people. It's the principal pay down.
Yeah, and they're okay with that because of the way you structure the deal has them getting their $50K, right? That's because that's you're isolating at that as their only as the only thing they're looking to accomplish, and they're confirming it for you, right? Yeah, I was hoping to get 50 out of it at closing. Great, if I could get you $50,000, right? At closing, would you be willing to sell it owner financing? And they're like, well, sure. Yeah, that's what I was going to get anyway, right? And then obviously you structure the terms to protect yourself and to ensure the seller gets what they want, and everybody wins, right?
Yeah, and there's kind of like, I just thought of something when you were saying this. There's a neat way for a realtor to do both. And I'm not licensed anymore, but you can do both if you're a realtor, meaning I sat with an individual on his front porch who I had met through, he had an estate sale, his dad passed. And all the siblings didn't want to do terms. They wanted closure. I get it. Yeah. But he called me at the end of all that liquidation and said, hey, I got one property left. We met you back when, blah, blah, blah. Can I sell mine? I got to go to North Carolina tomorrow, South Carolina. I said, sure. What were you on for? 225, 219 with a realtor. Didn't sell. This was a Thursday. He said, I got to leave Monday. I said, what did you think you were going to get realistically, Don? After you paid the realtor and after you did all your negotiating? He said, 183.9. I had that in my head. He said, done. I'll pay you 183.9, no money down, $900 something a month principal payments. So he came up with the number. and he was tickled pink to do a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
Now that deal, crazy enough, has changed to, we keep extending it. It's changed to a 5-year to a 6-year, and then we just added 15 years and put a little interest on it. So that deal just turned into a 21-year deal. 21 years. The realtor let it expire.
Wow. And who knows how much money you'll make in 21 years.
I can tell you the 4-year deal on that because it's in my slides that I did recently for RIA. The 4-year deal before I extended it was $128,000 on a 183.9 house. Think about that for a second. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's insane, man. So tell me, like, what's the most amount of money you've ever made on a deal?
I'll do us, and then I'll do students. We have a deal now. It's on the ocean in Cape Cod. It'll be over $250,000. We're not done it yet, but it'll be well over $250,000. And funny enough, now this will kill you. A realtor owned it and sold it to us, owner financing, principal only, and then rented it back from us because she wanted to stay with her mom. It's a crazy deal. Why should she just wanted closure? And so, can you imagine if she know how to do this?
$250,000, huh?
Well, it's a 950 house. It's a $1.2 million house. We bought it for $945 on a bluff overlooking the ocean at Cape Cod. I mean, it's a beautiful house. She just wanted closure. She had a sick mom, but if she knew how to do terms, I wouldn't have got the call.
Yeah. How did you find that deal, Chris?
That wasn't expired, but then we realized she's a realtor from Boston.
Okay. All right.
How to do it.
So she listed her own property, couldn't sell it, and then you found it in the expireds, called her, found out she was an agent, but also found out that she was desperate, right? She wanted to sell the home. She had a specific set of guidelines that she wanted met, and you were able to meet those. And that's why
she wanted closure. I have people at our events come up and go, "Why did that woman do that?" I said, "I don't know. She wanted closure with her mom. Period. End of story. We fixed it."
That's insane, man. That's awesome, man. You love those deals. We had a deal where we bought, my business partner and I, we bought a building, and this was a great deal for us. We actually bought the building from a guy that was getting a divorce. His business wasn't doing great, but his dad, he inherited the company from his dad. It was a vacuum cleaner company. And so we bought the building. We bought it for $110,000. We leased it back to him. He had a full equity position on it. So he paid $33,000, which was the entire lease for a year up front.
Wow.
And then we went to a month to month. So he paid 3 extra months after he'd been there for a year. And then we put the building on, when he went month to month, we put it on the market. And he was like, well, yeah, I'm probably going to look to be moving out, going back into corporate America. Then we put it on the market, and then we ended up selling it for $330 a year later. So we got $30,000 up front in the full lease price, right? So there was a great spread on that lease, and then we made another $200,000 on the back end when we sold it.
It's cool.
So, yeah, it's a great deal, man, for us.
I think you're doing great things for your tribe just by talking about these deals, because success leaves clues. It's not like these deals don't get done. I just mentioned 1800s, right? I literally read in books how they were doing master leases and lease purchase. So it's cool that you talk about it and keep it front and center, and hopefully people kind of cross the line, so to speak, and dip their toe in and do some of these deals. Yeah,
for sure, man. And that's why I don't get too concerned about the iBuyers. You know what I mean? They're like, all iBuyers they're investors, right? I mean, that's what the investors have been around, like you said, since the 1800s. So, now where iBuyers can win, obviously, is they have, billions of dollars in venture capital funds. So their marketing could be, potentially better if you're not digging your heels in right now and trying to get ahead of that. But like, as far as like worrying about iBuyers, it's like, at the end of the day, a lot of investor offers, they may be better than the iBuyer offer anyway, after, you're paying all the fees into these companies. But yeah, it's another thing, you're always evolving in business. You're always having to pivot. Your strategy changes from year to year, you know what I mean? Just based on what the market gives you. And so there's never going to be any one strategy that works just year after year after year. You're always going to have to evolve. But for you, I'm just curious, like, you obviously were in real estate as a real estate agent.
Yeah.
When did it click for you and you were just like, man, I really like this investing game. I think I'm going to give this a shot.
You know what? Mine was more, it's not always, but it was predictive, meaning in early 90s, I got beat up building some homes, and I said, this is like work. This is like a job. Like, this is do a deal, get paid. So I said, I'll buy a franchise. So that's when I went to the realtor mode. But when I bought it, I said, I want to sell it in 5 years. And everyone said, you can't sell a brokerage. You can't do that. There's no value.
Right.
We did. A core banker came, literally, they were knocking on doors in our area and said, I opened to selling, and that was my plan anyway. So it wasn't like I said, this stinks, I'm going to pivot. It just was part of my original plan to not be in it forever.
Yeah.
But then once I got out and started looking at, deals, we were doing condominium conversions and things like that back then. It was pretty cool to be controlling my own deals and not having to worry. I was still licensed, but I was doing my own deals, which is pretty cool. And the iBuyer thing, or whatever the company said, we teach people to be the authority, like plant your flag in your area. Like, they don't want to even deal with them if they can deal with you. They don't want a national company if they can deal with you.
Yeah.
But you got to let them know that you do it, and you plant your flag by being the authority. We teach that too, because things like your show, things like YouTube, you can plant your flag. You just got to make sure you do that so they know.
Yep. So when you guys take on a new student, what are some of the first things that you encourage them to do?
Okay, it's interesting because I used to think it was all skill set, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought, okay, in hindsight, I'm going, we teach the same exact thing to all our students. Why do some people do a deal in literally 42 days? We track time to first deal. And why do some take 365 days? Even though the big deals, it took 360. Well, it's all the other stuff. So the first thing we do is bring them through the skill set, sure. But then we start integrating the mindset and the other mental piece, because there's this weird thing someone told me years ago, Mike. It was mentally and personally development-wise, your income will never outgrow you. And I thought, wow, that's pretty scary. Meaning, if you don't constantly develop that piece of the game, forget real estate, your income can't outpace you. It'll always come back. It'll always bring back for some reason. You're like, what the heck happened? I can't go past this income level. It's because you're not working on the other parts of your game, the mental, all the strengthening that has to happen to go through this growth cycle. So first and foremost, it's blocking and tackling basic skill sets, and then it's integrating this other stuff that I know is so important.
Yeah. It's the same reason why somebody wins $900 million in the lottery and they piss it all away. Right? 100%. Yeah. It's because they haven't mentally, they don't know how to keep $900 million, right? If you don't earn $900 million, you don't traditionally, I mean, if you haven't done the work to get there, then you don't have what it takes in order to keep it.
You know I agree. I mean? And there's people that can show you, I forget who also said this on my show recently, but like, think of, I know who it was. It was David Nurse. He coaches NBA players. His dad, his uncle coaches the Raptors and won a title. He said, Chris, it's interesting. Like any one of my players, he said, I just say to them, what's the one thing we're going to work on? Same with our real estate people. Okay, let's go find the person that did exactly that. Like he went through your challenge. He had a son that did this. He had a daughter. Like there's someone out there on the internet now that did that. Go find him and then just model it. It's like it's not brain science.
Yeah, yeah. That's great stuff, man. So tell me a little bit about your program, Chris.
Yeah, so ours is, I call it Bridging the Gap. Sometimes I have a shirt that says Bridging the Gap, because in real estate, and I'm sure you agree with this, there's just a lot of crap. And there's a lot of people who know how to market.
No, are you serious?
They're great marketers, but they don't have any practical in the trenches. So what we do is, when I say Bridge the Gap, we are looking and focus laser, like as a company, to take the time to first deal from when you see a seminar or a course to when you get a deal done. That's the gap. Unfortunately, sadly, some people stay in that forever. So we're into getting deals done and working with them in the trenches. So when I said to you at the very beginning of the show, like we'll call the buyers and sellers with the new students, we're in the trenches because we rev share with them. So ours is a more hands-on program. We've got a platform that teaches them the basics. And if they want to go more aggressive, they can do some stuff with us, so they can go off and running and do it themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And I know Chris really well. I've followed Chris on social media for a long time. So I know there's a certain subset who maybe want to investigate further before they take that step. Chris, if you don't mind, share with us some of the ways people can do research and get to know you a little bit better through some of your social media platforms, your podcast, and so forth.
Yeah, we're big on free because I want you to be able to go do your due diligence. And when you come in, go, I decided this is my niche. Like, this is it. I'm not going to dip my toe. This is it. So you can go to smartrealestatecoach.com. If you don't mind listening to me babble for another half hour, my son-in-law, Zach, and I do a free webinar. Now, it's not going to teach you how to go make $1 million, but it's going to let you see more of the niche, more of what Mike and I talked about, and then decide if you want to dig further. So that's the main thing. You can go to our podcast, smartrealestatecoachpodcast.com. That's more general. That's not just this niche. So I think the site is the main thing, Mike. And then I said to you before the show, I'll give you a link here. They can download, we'll send it to them, the electronic version, the Real Estate on Your Terms bestseller.
Yeah.
We redid it right during COVID. It wasn't planned. We happened to be going through a revision because it came out in 17, and that just started shipping from Amazon last month. And I'll give you the free link. So it's just free, srecbook.com. Free SREC book.
Yeah, Chris, if you go to the right-hand side of your page, I think at the top right, if you click on comments, I think you can drop a comment there. If not, I can drop it for you. Okay, so obviously, if people want to do more research, that's a great way to start. Let's say someone hears this, Christo, and they're ready to get started. Let's say this really resonates with them. And this, guys, this is not just for real estate agents. This is for anybody looking to become a real estate investor. If they're ready to get started, what would you recommend they do, Chris?
We'll make sure the link goes live, but just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/Mike Wall live. And what we'll do is we'll have the QLS platform there, and that's our online platform. But here's the difference, Mike. It's not a course where you go, got it, went through it, know how to do this. Yeah. It's a resource center. We are updating it like painfully every single month. My son, myself, my son-in-law, because COVID changed things, market changes, like you said earlier. We are updating this constantly. There's 12 mods. There's over 90 audios and videos. It's pretty impactful.
And you mentioned COVID, changing the game a little bit. How have you guys kind of modified your business plan based on what happened with COVID?
Yeah, lucky enough, I don't think anything's a coincidence, but we just started about a year before COVID doing two things. Doing a little bit more virtual. The database kept screaming like, show us how to do this virtual. And the second thing we started doing more importantly is pushing terms longer. This was a mindset thing, back to what we were just talking about. We used to automatically go to 3 years. Then after about a year before COVID, and then during COVID, we started saying to our students, hey, just ask for longer terms. Like, people are more flexible than ever now. They want you to guide them. Now we're seeing deals, Mike, that are like 5, 7, and 10-year deals. That's cool. All it was a mind shift. So we're doing those two things right now because do we really care? Like my building, 20 years. Do I really care what the market's doing over the next 10 years? I don't care. I get 20 years on this owner financing. So longer terms is the answer for sure.
Yeah. And the equity position is going to go up in 20 years. You know it. I mean, that's never not happened before. You know what I mean?
Right.
Man, that's just great stuff. So if people want to get in touch with you, Chris, personally, what is the best way for them to do that?
I'll give you a link that my team will probably give me a spanking for, but they can go to smartrealestatecoach.com/action, and they can schedule a free call. They just got to say they heard me and you on your show. I don't do it on all shows, so just make sure you mention your show, and I'll honor the calls. It'll be myself or our strategy expert, Brian, or my son-in-law, Zach. You'll get one of us live.
Awesome, man. Well, as usual, I love sharing these stories week after week because I know this show is literally changing agents' financial lives, my own included. Do me a big favor. If you know someone that might enjoy the podcast, please share it with them. If you like the podcast, please go to wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget, if you like Mr. Chris Prefontaine's episode today, to leave us a nice 5-star review. Also, MikeWallLive.com. You can get 8 hours worth of absolutely free real estate business training right now. For Mr. Chris Prefontaine, this is Mike Wall. Thanks so much for listening. Chris, thank you so much again, man, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Much appreciated.
Boom.